possible. I am Samela, and if you're just joining me, you are tuning in on day 9 of a 28-day commitment to becoming aligned with Kingdom Intelligence. 28 days of awakening. And you might be saying, well, why are you doing this? I am doing this because it is so important to me, to our Father, i.e., God, that we stop living on autopilot. Like, we must stop living our lives on autopilot because we were born for a moment. We were born for a time such as this, and it is our responsibility to get curious, get hungry, and start figuring out why we are where we are in our lives. And so today's topic couldn't be more amazing and aligned with that. But before I jump into today's topic, um, kingdom intelligence. What's kingdom intelligence? Well, kingdom intelligence is sitting with God long enough to know, to start representing what it feels like, rising to the occasion of who He show you really are, and moving as if you are a trust fund baby, because we were all born with abundance, inheritance, and our Father is the King, not a king, the King. So today's topic is self advocacy. I just had a really great conversation with my little cousin, and I'm like, you know what? This is what needs to be talked about today because we just went into it and we dug into it. And so I'm just like, let's talk about it. The silent pattern that shapes lives more than talent, intelligence, opportunity is self advocacy. Advocating for yourself, speaking up for yourself. Most people don't struggle with lack of potential. You have a lot of potential. You can do a lot of things well. You are amazing at a lot of things. We oftentimes struggle because we've never learned how to participate in shaping our own outcome, being the author of our own story, penning what is and what is not aligned to our lives. And so this conversation, we're going to talk about why people avoid advocating for themselves, how lack of self-advocacy slowly becomes a lack of confidence, how assumptions replace conversations and limit our growth, why self-advocacy is a foundational part to like leadership, entrepreneurship, healthy relationships with others and with yourself, and how to advocate for yourself because it's going to build this self-trust, it's going to build authority, and it's going to help you see your identity greater. And so as we begin to jump into this self-advocacy, I want to be very clear. Self-advocacy is not about confrontation at all. It could very well lead to conversation, but it could very well lead to celebrations, right? Self-advocacy is about clarity, setting expectations. It's about refusing to disappear in your own life. It's refusing to shrink because you want to be tolerated. So this conversation is going to challenge the way that we show up, how we think about confidence, communication, and personal responsibility to help us recognize the moments where our voice is required. Because most of the time, people don't rise to our potential because they rise to the experience of our standards. So I've listed 7 ways, I've broken down 7 ways in which self-advocacy is needed, why it's important, and it's clarity, it's emotional regulation, and it's self-permission. And so let's talk about these 7 ways that self-advocacy is important, and let's talk about why it matters. So number 1, self-advocacy What time is it? It's 5 o'clock. Are you trying to tell me I'm late or something? Why are you asking me what time it is? I am late. I'm supposed to be going live every day at 4:30. So if you're trying to clock me, I'm here for it or whatever. But what I did not do is not do it. So hi. It is 5 p.m. here in New York. I'm in Brooklyn, by the way. Okay, we're talking about self-advocacy and 7 ways in which we gotta shake these things up. Number one, self-advocacy is proof of identity, not aggression, right? Most of the time, people don't self-advocate because they are not attaching their emotions to their worth, like self-worth. It's saying I exist and my experience exists, my interpretation of this exists, and it's letting people know that you exist and allowing them to coexist around you. I had a lesson. I had a lesson on self advocacy. Yeah, because I can go on a tangent. I be trying to stay on topic, but really, self advocacy in life in general is so important because we will start shrinking and realize that we're upset about life and wonder why are we so upset? But it's because we start living the life that everybody told us we got to live versus the life that we really want to live. And this is why I'm like, you know what? I need to have this conversation because me and my little cousin was just talking about it. And I'm like, this needs to be talked about. And so that's why I'm trying to stay on topic. I'll try to stay on topic, but if y'all drop something in the comments, of course I'm going to address it and talk about it and get off topic. So as long as you can ride with me on these things, let's do it. So we understand number one, most of the time people are not trying to be malicious at all, but people can only operate at the last standard that was tolerated, right? So if someone is doing something to you, quote unquote, what if they are only doing that because everybody else in their life allowed them to do it that way? It is your responsibility to show up in a way that says, this, I'm not doing that with you. We're not doing that, right? Like, it's literally normalizing what matters to you and your level of expectation. And so self-advocacy is going to disrupt others people norm, right? The way that other people show up. It sets a new standard. It should, because guess what? When people deal with you, they shouldn't be able to deal with you how they deal with everybody else in the world, because then that makes you forgettable. That's a whole nother topic that we can talk about another day, but not today. Without self-advocacy, assumptions become the identity. When someone doesn't self-advocate for themselves, our brains begin to fill up with like these silent stories about what's happening. Like, it'll start feeling like people always do this to me. I guess that's just how it is. People don't respect me. They always playing in my face. They trying to get over on me, right? It will literally fill in the gaps. And we already know our mind in general, no matter how hard, how amazing, how much we've done the healthy healing, our mind will go negative before it goes positive. And so when you don't self-advocate, assumptions become the story. And then guess what? When you're assuming that mistreatment is the way that it is, it starts having this unexpressed expectation, right? Like, it starts leaving like resentment. It starts making you feel like, I'm not about to do this. I ain't going over there with them because they always disrespecting me. I'm not about to go to the family event because people rude. And they probably are rude, but they also have been rude their entire life because everybody let them be rude. You see what I mean? And so then once you start withdrawing from stuff, you become powerless. And now you're like isolating yourself. I don't do this. I don't do this because they do this. When the whole time, are you telling them what we're not going to do? Are you expressing yourself and saying, this is not it? We're not doing this, right? Like, we're not about to do this. So most people, you're literally accidentally training people on how to treat you, which then lets victimhood come in the door. because you don't wake up saying I'm a victim, but you do wake up saying everybody be rude to me. Everybody treat me this way. Well, are they treating you this way, or are you allowing them to treat you this way because you have not advocated for yourself? You see, this is real questions that we have to ask ourselves. Self-advocacy re-enters participation. Like, you have to actively participate in life, in relationships, in situationships. When they are not doing, showing up, acting, preparing as you choose, this is where your participation counts, because then you can reset the energy in the room. You can reset expectations and tell people what we're not going to do. Self advocacy requires emotional maturity more than it does confidence. So, this is number three. Self advocacy requires emotional maturity more than it does confidence. Most people think that you have to be courageous or have this like fearlessness to self advocate, but that's not really it. You have to emotionally regulate. You have to still be willing to be whoever you are, i.e., your identity, because you made a decision on what type of person you want to be in the world. And once you understand who you want to be, you can emotionally regulate. You can be mad and not throw stuff. You can be furious and not smack somebody. You can be happy and not be singing around the room all day long, right? This is where emotional regulation comes in at, because the moment that you advocate for yourself, you lose control over the outcome, because that's, you're not in control of how they show up. Only thing that you're in control over is your tone, your clarity, and the way in which you deliver it. But you cannot control their response to it, which requires a level of emotional regulation. You get what I'm saying? And because advocating for yourself forces you to detach your worth from their reaction. Let me tell you that again, because that almost smacked me in my face, and I'm a self-advocator. So advocating for yourself forces you to detach your worth from their reaction. So just because they reacted crazy, wild, loud, aggressive, that does not mean that you were wrong, or you should shrink, or you're not valid. You're no longer in control of them. You do not, when you advocate for yourself, you're only responsible for you in the integrity in which you show up. And that is really where your power sits. I tell people this all the time. The strongest energy is what moves the room. For example, if you go somewhere and everybody always complaining, if that is the strongest energy in the room, and that energy is stronger than your energy, you're going to start complaining as well, because that's the dominant energy in the room. If you go somewhere and everybody's negative, the world this and the government trying to take us over and trying to take over our lives, and I'm not going to do this, and you then become the person who only want to talk about what the government is doing, versus the person who has autonomy to do. If you know that they're going to do this to you anyway, why are you surprised? And this is where self-advocacy come in, right? Number four, self-advocacy is how leaders are formed. You can only become a real life leader when and you honestly, you cannot even be a leader if you can't advocate for yourself. And advocating for yourself is going to show up in your company, in your vision, on your team, the boundaries around you, the relationships around you, your time, your value. People cannot tell you how much you should be charging for service that you've learned to do over 30 years. They're not paying you for that 30 minutes that it took you to do the thing. They're paying you for the 30 years that it took you to be the expert to do the thing in 30 minutes. But if you don't self-advocate, you will let them talk you down on your prices, and then now you like struggling. You're running a business, but you're struggling because you don't know how to advocate for yourself. You don't know how to say, I learned this skill over this time, and this is why this cost matters so much. And because leadership is so essential in structuring the way that you self-advocate, you have to be able to stand on business, essentially. Literally, you have to be able to stand on business, because leadership is essentially structured self-advocacy on behalf of a mission, right? When you are a leader at McDonald's, at a nonprofit, at a for-profit, you can rally up the team and help them all come on one accord in one direction. So self-advocacy is required in leadership. Every founder has to be able to set their own terms and advocate. Fundraising requires you to self-advocate for the mission in the business. And you really just kind of have to stand on business when you're self-advocating, and that does not require ego at all. We're not talking about from a place of ego. We're talking from a place of authority. And sometimes power is presence and not pushing or being aggressive. What is this? Oh, we're talking about self-advocacy. Hi, this is Just Alive, and we're talking about self-advocating for who you are and who you want to be. And we on number 5. There were 7 of them, and we're on number 5. So I got to run through them. Self-advocacy builds self-trust. Oftentimes, we don't do stuff because we don't trust ourselves. We don't trust that we will pull through. We don't trust that we know how to handle ourselves if the situation go in a different direction. And that's one of the most important pieces when you are advocating for yourself. Even if the outcome is not perfect, you have to be able to regulate your nervous system, right? And when you can regulate your nervous system with trusting who you are, you start realizing I am not going to abandon myself to make everybody else feel good. I'm not going to set me on fire to keep everybody else warm. Because if you do, you are doing more harm to yourself than allowing other people to carry the brunt of other things, right? It creates an internal safety when you can self-advocate for yourself, because you start seeing your boundaries. You start knowing when you feel uncomfortable. And guess what you can do? You can express yourself. You can say, I don't want to be here anymore. I'm ready to get up out of this. This doesn't work for me anymore. And it creates this external confidence. And now people know, don't come over here with that nonsense. This ain't what you want, right? Like you be looking like, this ain't what you want. I can guarantee you this is not what you want. Because you trust yourself to give the energy that I will speak up for myself. It doesn't, again, have to be from ego. It doesn't have to be from being crazy loud and going like above and beyond. But you can be able to trust that if any situation happen, I am confident that I can deal with it. I can nip it in the bud. That's we can do what needs to be done around here. It comes from knowing you will show up for yourself in every single interaction. And self-advocacy is a compounding effect on your identity, because the more points you put on the board for you, hey, the more points you can put on the board for yourself, the more points you will have when it's time for you to speak up for you. Number 6, self-advocacy. People don't rise to your potential, they rise to your expressed standard. So if it seemed like anything go with you, they gonna let anything go with you. That's from dating, that's from a job, that's from family, that's from everything. Like it literally, people will let things happen because you let things happen. But the moment that you start saying, we're not doing this, right? Because if you start expressing your standard, you can give people with the opportunity to either rise to your standard or not. Do you have a husband? I do not, but that's kind of wild for you to ask me that. Not for real, but a little bit. He's gonna find me soon. He's looking for me now. Thank you. But self-advocacy is updating your own operating system. You know, when you put the rules in place, it allows you to set the standard and let people know it's okay if you don't rise to this standard, but you don't have access to me because you're unable to rise to this standard. And most of the time, we allow people to stay in our life because we want to be tolerated. We don't want to be alone. We don't want to make people feel bad. But guess what? You're feeling bad because they don't respect you. You're feeling bad because you're not doing what you want to do. So why are you so responsible for everybody else's feelings but not your own? Why are you so responsible for everybody else's feelings but not your own? Like, why should everybody else be comfortable, be excited, express themselves freely, but you got to choke on your words? That's crazy. You just got to be able to emotionally regulate your words, be able to release the outcome. You're not in control of how they think, what they do, and how they show up, but you are in control with how you think, what you do, and how you show up. And so I'm going to have to end really soon. Number 7, self-advocacy is not about controlling others, literally. It's about refusing to disappear. I don't need to dominate this moment, but I will participate in it. My voice does matter here. I will say what I need to say. If you receive it, great job. If you don't, great job. But I'm not going to be quiet so that you can be comfortable. So we got to stop letting people take our voice and then be upset when we don't know how we sound. I believe in you. We all know that self-advocacy is, once you learn to do it in a controlled manner, you can dominate anything you touch because you trust that you know how to show up in any room, any time, any place, and people are not going to walk all over you. And so it's time that we advocate for ourselves. I dropped 7 reasons, 7 topics about self-advocating for yourself, but your voice matters, your moment matters, and it's important for you to start taking up space and operating in main character energy. How about that? Operate in main character energy. That's what you got to do. And main character energy does not require you to be mean, nasty, rude, angry, or like ego, but it does say that I'm here. You know I'm here. And think about it. When you don't self-advocate, you kind of come invisible because nobody's going to invite you to nothing because you ain't got no opinion. You don't never add value. You don't say stuff, right? And so when you self-advocate, people invite people to the room who can speak up. People want to be around people who can express themselves. People want to have friends who are bold and like fun and shameless about who they are. So advocate for yourself more. Be great. I believe in you. And run this back if you need to go through how to advocate for yourself, 7 ways to advocate for yourself. I go live every day at 4:30, and we're doing 28 days of awakening so that we can stop living our life on autopilot, because you were born with a purpose and it's up to you to discover what that purpose is. And I believe kingdom intelligence will help you do that. What is kingdom intelligence? It's sitting with God long enough to start representing him and matching his energy. If he say you're great, if he say you're wealthy, if he say you can do all things, if he say nothing is impossible for you, then you start moving in that same energy. I believe in you. Be great. Bye. Gotta go. Don't forget to